We had a great, what we considered like a really amazing energy transition, if you want to call it that, investment opportunity. And it was some electric compression, and it was in the Permian, and it had the ability, one of these units, because of the blowdown from the methane. So with these normal compressors, they cycle on these wellheads and they blow down methane and it just vents to the atmosphere, and they burn natural gas. I think one of these things, like we were calculating, it was like 700 Teslas annually for a single one of these units. And these guys were, putting into service hundreds of these units per year. And the company was making really good money. And ultimately the LPs, at least this is the message really relayed to us from the capital provider, was that they thought, well, this is just greenwashing. It's pumping oil out of the ground. And this is not the type of ESG or green investment that we would want to do. And it's like, these guys are crushing Tesla. Tesla's not even, they're going to blow. Tesla has this little counter on their website of like how many tons that they've reduced. And I think it's like 3 million or 4 million. I don't know where it's at now, but we were calculating it. And we're like, these guys are doing that like annually. And this is like their cumulative tons from Tesla, or how many tons of emissions or whatever. So I just got this sense that it didn't really matter that it was this great story, that it was actually making an impact, that it was providing American energy, that it was making our barrels cleaner. It was just kind of like, nah, it's not that doesn't fit our narrative. And that was pretty troubling to me. And like, do you think that theme is out there, that people are acting like that? Or do you think that it will change and people will start looking more at those types of opportunities where it's like, this is a quick win, we can do it? Or what are your thoughts?
I've been probably most troubled with this idea that people apply a moralistic tone to different energy forms. And energy is the last thing that should be part of our culture wars. There's no such thing as clean or dirty or green or brown. There's all this sort of arbitrary labels attached to these things. We all are now starting to appreciate that a Tesla, as an example, will stick with that. It's never been zero carbon emissions. It's been zero tailpipe emissions. And I think if you live in an area with a lot of smog, it's clean air, clean water, biodiversity. Certainly the clean air part, that is helped with zero tailpipe emissions. But obviously there's a whole bunch of carbon emissions that go into creating that Tesla. So, whether that payback period, if you want to call it as such, is 5 or 7 years, I think people are starting to appreciate there's no such thing as zero carbon anything out there. I think the second point is clearly critical minerals. I think most people now are aware of Siddharth Kara's book on cobalt red and the challenges. It just cannot be okay that child labor and these kind of things exist. And maybe we didn't know about it. And maybe me selling my Tesla doesn't do anything. But what about, should I buy a future Tesla if it somehow is how can it not be sourced from Congo when you look at what a dominant share of cobalt they are, right? And so my point would simply be, I feel like I'm starting to hear even environmentalists, those who are way left of where at least I am, or a lot of people I think are, recognize that the mining side is something you're going to have to deal with, and simply sticking it in another country doesn't mean it's suddenly carbon or issue free. And I think I'm sort of always an optimist and glass half full kind of person. People now change the terms from, some people still use it, but sort of climate's all that matter. We're only going to count CO2. You now start to hear the term energy trilemma. Which is we need to care about affordability, security, along with carbon. And they somehow, I think, are skipping availability. And maybe they'll get it a whatever, quadremma, whatever the additional word is. We're moving towards that direction. Yeah. I'd still say you got to provide energy availability and affordability first and foremost. And without solving for that, you're never going to solve for any of these other issues of things like carbon and so forth. I think in terms of the greenwashing, again, if people want to hate on oil and gas, I always say, you don't have to love fossil fuel companies. No one say, let's just say you're an environmentalist. And let's just say, you're never going to convince me the fossil fuel industry is good. They're all a bunch of greedy people and all this. Let's just say you have that mindset. It's got to be better still to produce it in the United States and Canada than to produce it. And I apologize, Max, I'm American's perspective here, than produce it in Russia or Iran. How is that even a question? Go protest export facilities in Iran first before you protest our pipelines and facilities. I don't understand the mindset. When people say, hey, oil industry, I'm against, Arctic and I'm against unconventional oils, what are they talking about? They're talking about usually Canada's oil sands and maybe Alaska or something like that. How is that okay? Right. Go protest oil from unfriendly countries to the United States and its allies first if you hate fossil fuels before you start protesting here.